systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, everybody? We are back for a finals edition of the NBA show. Been a minute since I personally have been on a live stream. As you can see, got a different background now. I'm in a new location, but always excited to talk to my guy, Matt. Matt, it's been probably 2 months now since we've jumped on a show together and really talked some hoops. You've been crushing it over on the MLB side of things, as well as everybody else on the MLB team. But how you doing today? Looking forward to talking through this finals. Should be a 1-1, probably one of the most anticipated finals in a really long time.
Yeah, man, it should be a good one. If Wemby wins it, obviously breaking all the rules about rite of passage, young teams, young players, etc. But he's such an outlier in every other aspect. Why would this be any different? So excited to watch the series because I know firsthand just how good the Knicks are. Blasting my Cavs. Obviously, after we got by the Pistons, thought of you a little bit. Didn't want to rub it in. Pistons kind of what I expected they were. They had Cade and then nothing else. A bunch of tryhards in the regular season. I respect their squad. Not that, I was really impressed with Cleveland in that series. I just thought the talent won over in the end. And Cleveland played with their food too much against Toronto and Detroit. 2 Game 7s. And then, man, that game 1 collapse against the Knicks will go down in history, and Cleveland collapses. And that's saying a lot because there have been a bunch of them. But what an awful performance. And the Knicks are where they are right now because of it. Swept the Cavs, bunch of time off, which they had before the last series. They're playing really, really good basketball. Obviously, the Spurs, most would agree, are the more talented team, especially up top. But I think this is going to be a good series. I think this one goes deep, 6-7 games, and most of the games are competitive.
Yeah, that's a great kind of lead up to basically what's been going on in the playoffs. Definitely kind of bury the lead a little bit and talk about each team's paths to getting to this point. But yeah, the very poor performance from the Pistons, honestly, just all around, I think a pretty big letdown for them, considering they were the best team in the East all year long, and then you don't really make a splash move at the deadline. Their big move was Kevin Huerter, and he didn't even hit much or factor much to anything in the playoffs when guys like Kobe White and some of these other players were out there. Now the chatter is that they're going to go after Kawhi. Obviously, that would make them a lot better, but I think that the biggest issue that they have is just not surrounding Cade and Duran with enough perimeter shooting. I mean, both the Thompson twins, I think, need to just work on shooting in the offseason. I don't know. They need to get in there with lethal shooter and just practice for 3 to 4 months, just jumpers, thousands and thousands of jumpers all day. But yeah, I mean, this should be a really, really fun series. So what's up with people in chat before we start to break this down? Our guy Sean Sullivan, I know he's probably not in here live right now. He said he's got some work stuff, so catch you on playback. Jordan Newlands, what's going on, man? Our guy Little Neck, got to shout him out. Been crushing it with the showdown stuff on the site all year long, and especially in the playoffs. Been a lot of fun. Definitely been reading a lot of his articles as I get more into these Western Conference, Eastern Conference Finals game. Was a lot of fun. Just kind of hear his breakdowns. Michael W. Got our local Knicks fanatic. Wardo is in here. Jose Morales, Jordan Newlands, the Nybrader. What's going on, man? Like that name. Our Klein is here. Gilly's here. Yeah, they need to find Chip. Yeah, a lot of money for sure. Lost a lot of money there. All right, we'll want to touch on some of the macro stuff that we saw from these teams throughout the entire season. Well, probably doesn't matter as much as we are now in the finals, but just I think it's pretty clear why these two teams are in the finals now. Just looking at some of the offensive rating stuff. Spurs were 3rd in the season. Knicks were 4th. Defensive rating-wise, the Spurs were 3rd. Knicks were 7th. Half-court offense, Knicks were 3rd. Spurs were 4th. Half-court defense, Spurs 3rd. Knicks 7th. So these are two of the best offenses and defense in the NBA. Really no surprise that these teams are here. The Knicks led the way in the playoffs in offensive rating by a really wide margin with some of those massive blowouts that we saw. 123.3 offensive rating versus the Spurs at 115.4. Somewhat weighted by the blowouts, but still they had to play really well in those games to get there. These are two teams with the best net ratings in the playoff, plus 19.8 for the Knicks, plus 11 for San Antonio. The paths for this team to get to the finals were much different. And, you could say what you want about the Knicks paths. Like maybe the strength of schedule was not as good. I think that we can all agree that the West is better than the East. But nonetheless, you still have to play some really good teams. And that was a historic 11-game stretch, honestly the best that we've ever seen. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the stats, but like the best plus minus from an 11-game stretch or best point differential ever in an 11-game stretch, not even the playoffs or regular season, just the best ever. It was like plus 236 or something like that. So you definitely need to be playing really good basketball to beat those teams. Spurs definitely had a really tough route. They played the Blazers. I think were a pretty good team for where they were seated. The Wolves, obviously one of the better teams. They probably would have been like a top 3 to 4 team if they were in the East, which we might see in a few years. And then they took the reigning champs to 7 on the road and won that game. So just a really, really good path. The Knicks will definitely have the advantage in terms of rest. They've been off for over a week now, I believe. I don't know exactly. I think it might be like 9 days, something like that, which will help them because OG Anunoby was dealing with the hamstring injury, should be fully healthy now. But then obviously the Mitchell Robinson hand injury is kind of the big talking point here. When you're thinking about these teams and how much time they've had off, who do you think it benefits the most? Obviously, the Spurs will have fresher legs, but the Knicks have fresher legs, but the Spurs have been playing a lot more basketball, might be in better form. Like 9 days is not a short amount of time to not be playing any games.
I think we kind of saw this in the Cavs series. I think it definitely benefits the Knicks here. So I think it'll benefit the Spurs for maybe like a half because the Knicks haven't played for so long. But they already went through that in the Cavs series. Cavs got up massive in the first half in that series before the Knicks came back. I don't think they let that happen again. And after the first half, I think it really benefits the Knicks. I think the Thunder and Spurs really beat up on each other for good reason. The Knicks basically cakewalked all the way to the finals. So I think the Knicks are really live in this series and that's a big reason why. The timing is right for them. They're healthy. They're rested. Yeah, I personally think it benefits the Knicks, especially because the Knicks were here the round before, went down huge in game 1. And like I said, I just don't think they let that happen again. And then after the first half, I think it's all about the rests that it benefits. So that's my take, at least.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree there. OG Anunoby, I think, is like one of the biggest. He's probably the most or the second most important player on the Knicks, in my opinion. Like you could argue, obviously Brunson is up there, Cat, Hart's important, but like OG, just his impact on both sides of the court, but especially defensively with his versatility. But getting him healthy, I think, is going to be huge for them. I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing like 40 plus minutes right off the bat, probably averaging 40 minutes a game in this series. It's kind of funny though. Like I saw on Twitter, people saying that the Knicks got there just without the analytics, just basically off the power of friendship because these guys are so close. And there's definitely something to be said there about a team with chemistry.
They're fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these guys know each other a lot. Obviously, all the Villanova guys playing together, but chemistry is it's something you can't really measure, but it's got such a big impact on a team sport, especially like basketball. Like more than anything else, just like the team that likes each other and will play for each other is really hard to beat. But you could also say that about San Antonio. They looked like they have a ton of chemistry as well. Young team, definitely defied all the odds, like you said. They're pretty much breaking all the rules. Like there's never been a team as young as them with as little experience that has won the finals. But rules and all these things have to be broken eventually. So maybe the Spurs will do it. All right, well, let's jump in to some of the matchup stuff. So if you want to start with the Knicks side of things, we'll go about this a little bit different. Just kind of talk about matchups we're seeing like individually, and then we'll get into some of the captain plays and I guess like some rules and stuff if we're setting any towards the bottom. But then we'll give our predictions and some of our conviction plays towards the end here. But on the Knicks side of things, I guess we can start up top with the Brunson and Cat stuff, since those are the 2 stars for them. What are you expecting from them to see matchup wise, and then just overall fantasy wise? What are you expecting from these guys?
Well, the first thing I think about when I think about both those guys, and I'll start with Brunson. He, for my money, is the best tough shot maker in the league. So, like, in spots like this, like, yeah, San Antonio is really good defensively, but I just feel good no matter what they throw at him. Like, he's going to be able to get his in a close game. Now, the Knicks have done a really good job this whole postseason and towards the latter half of the season of, like, latter quarter of the season, actually, of, like, having the ball out of Brunson's hands. That's part of the reason they're playing so much more free. But at the end of games, like, he's their leader. He's their engine. I'm confident in Brunson right now. I just feel like he's that guy. He's going to carry this team. He has carried this team. So no matter what San Antonio throws at him, I like Brunson a lot here. Towns, I think, is much more of a wild card. So for me, I think that the Knicks put Towns, I think they kind of throw Towns and OG at Wemby, but I'm worried about foul trouble with Towns. Like, we know offensively he's super talented, but I'm just not sure this is the spot for him. And I'm worried about foul trouble. That's kind of my first read when I think about Brunson and Towns. How do you see them?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you said about Brunson. I mean, he's, I think, pound for pound, like, the best scorer in the league right now. I don't really see Wardo talking about the Brunson stopper. I mean, I agree with him. Like, there hasn't been anybody in the playoffs that's really been able to slow him down. I think that this is probably the toughest matchup that he'll see, not because of, Vassell or Stephon Kass. Like, those guys are great one-on-one defenders. I think Dylan Harper will probably get the matchup a little bit, but it's just the impact that Wemby has and the gravity that he has on defense. I think that what they're going to be doing is putting Wemby on Josh Hart and then just kind of having him play off like they did a lot with the OKC matchup last game, and that was what really made it tough on Shai Gilgeous, and he's got to be, if not the best or the second best tough shot makers. Like, also much taller. Like, I still think Brunson is great enough and undeniably a good enough scorer that he's going to get his buckets toward the end of the game, but I could see it being a slower burn for him in the first couple quarters, like first couple minutes of the game, just kind of, I don't know, getting into the flow of things. They do have a lot
of Wemby effect.
Yeah, the Wemby effect. Like, it's gonna, we'll see what happens, but I do think that he'll be undeniable at the end of the game. I don't, like, in a close game, he's gonna be cooking whoever's in front of him one-on-one. I don't think anybody can stop him once he gets going.
I see your point, though. Like, will he do enough prior to that to, like, make you want to captain him for DFS purposes? This is really what people are here to see. So I get where you're going with all this.
Yeah, I mean, there was times where he had a solid game. Like, he's not really known as he's not your prototypical point guard that's going to be averaging like 12 plus assists a game. Did have a couple games where he was flirting with, or I think he actually probably did get a couple double doubles, but in those games the DFS output wasn't great. Like, you really want Brunson when he's scoring 35 to 40 points a night. I'm not certain where he ends up points per game wise when the series is all said and done. But I will be interested to see the adjustments that Mike Brown and the Knicks coaching staff will make, because they do a really good job of creatively finding their guys' space away from Wemby. Like, I was looking at some of the just like the replay stuff from earlier in the season. They played each other 3 times, and they were finding ways to get these guys the ball. So I think that they'll be able to draw up some plays for Brunson. And in terms of Cat, though, I do agree with you as well. I think that he's a really big wild card. To me, like, feels like he's got to get going early in the series. I think he's got to be the guy that really stretches the court and pulls Wemby from the basket more if Wemby is on him. Like, I need to see Cat shooting 4 to 6 threes a night, and maybe even more some of these nights. But I mean, he does have slightly better floor than Brunson, I would say, right now, just because of the rebounding stuff. And if they are going to continue to use him as the kind of point forward or point center like they were pretty much up to this point in the playoffs, then I could see him, like, maybe he doesn't have the best scoring night. Maybe he's at like 14 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. Like, you're piling up fantasy points at that point. So I think reluctantly am saying Cat is a slightly better captain play than Brunson, but I'll probably end up with more Brunson just because I'm a little bit more confident in him just being the true alpha for this team. Like usage is really, really going to condense on these guys in the playoffs like we've seen all year long. And I think Brunson's just going to find his spots. Let's jump into the secondary plays for the Knicks here. Let me pull up Saber here. Filter. Let's group in like the Hart, Bridges, and Anunoby. There's definitely a lot to unpack here. I think that to me, Josh Hart is like the X factor in this series because I think that his range of outcomes is as wide as it can get. Like they're going to be leaving him open a ton. He's like technically like quote unquote the worst 3-point shooter that the Knicks are going to be putting in the starting lineup. But even this season, he shot 39, 40% from three. So still a really, really good shooter. And he can, when he gets it going, we've seen him hit 4+ in a game. Yeah, I don't know. I think that he's going to be huge in the series. I was listening to just a bunch of podcasts leading up to this. And if Wemby is going to be on him, like the best way to tire Wemby out, it's not really with physicality. I'd say it's more with like transition scoring, just like pace of play. Like if you can get Wemby sprinting back on defense, he's going to be a lot less effective on offense. So I feel like Josh Hart just like clearing out right as soon as the shot goes up and getting some transition buckets to get Wemby back on defense is going to be what really, really makes a difference here. So I am like, we know that Josh Hart has the slate breaking ceiling to be an optimal captain. Like there's even a range of outcomes where he's the highest scoring player on the slate, like in a grinded out game. If he goes for like 45 and nobody else is topping 40, he's going to be the guy you need. But I also think that he's got the type of floor at 8,200 that could really bury you. And there are ways that the Knicks could play away from him. We've seen McBride, Landry Shamet, and Jordan Clarkson all be guys that have had their moments in the playoffs. And McBride and Shamet in particular, I think, are two interesting options because we know that they can get hot from three. I think that they match up good enough on defense where they could see extended minutes. I was looking at some of the minutes from Hart in the playoffs in last series. He had a floor of 24, but that was in a huge blowout. The low in a game that was close was 31 minutes. So that feels like I put him at like 31, 32 is like the floor for minutes. And then like 36 to 38 is the ceiling for him. But if you run into like that 31-minute game and he's not effective and we get like 17 or 18 from Shaman and McBride, that could be the difference maker. I think that those guys will go pretty overlooked, especially Landry Shamet, who to me, I think matches up pretty well here. You need a lot of shooting when you're playing against a team like the San Antonio Spurs because they just have such good rim defense with Wemby down low. But yeah, like what are you seeing between the trio of Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG Anunoby? You can take it which any way you want.
So for me, it's almost like a gut feel type of thing with these three guys because they're all similar enough in how they play. I am in agreement with you that I think Josh Hart is the biggest boom bust of them all. We saw in the Cavs series, Cavs basically just let him shoot, left him open. I think the Spurs implement a similar strategy here and let Hart beat them. In game one against the Cavs, they basically benched Hart for Shamet. And Shamet was awesome. Hart lost a ton of run. After that, Hart was really, really good in the series and paid off. I think every other game you needed him in DFS. So I'm in on Hart here. I like the Knicks in this spot. Again, I think they learned from that Cleveland series. They're not going to fall down early. I think San Antonio coming off that, they just won game 7 on the road against OKC. Like the more I'm talking about this, the more I like the Knicks in this spot. I think they're built for this game tonight. That means I like their role players. They've been playing well. All of them have been playing well. Like the problem with all of them is that I like all of them. I don't love any of them, but I think they all have high upside and low enough floor where they're all wildly in play, especially in builds where you're just going heavy Knicks.
Yeah, definitely agree with that there. Wardo's X factor is Mikal Bridges. I mean, I can see that. I think that he's definitely going to be everybody on the Knicks that's going to be seeing minutes is really, extremely important, but Bridges is definitely going to have a big assignment on both sides of the court. He should get De'Aaron Fox both ways, which will put him in a pretty good spot. I think Fox is probably the worst defender in the starting unit for the Spurs. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's been shooting the ball extremely well. Basically, had like one or two really bad games in the playoffs, then's been really good. I don't know. I think like the true shooting numbers were like north of 70%. Just really good for a guy that is mainly a jump shooter. So definitely like that call there. I think he's got a good price. To me, I would probably be going with OG if I was choosing one at captain, because I do think that OG's got just a much higher ceiling, and he's historically been a playoff riser, a guy that will average more fantasy points and more minutes, just more points in general in the playoffs. So I feel a little bit more confident in a guy like OG, who's only $600 more than Mikal Bridges. So that's probably the stand I would be taking. And then we definitely got to talk about Mitchell Robinson. I don't know he is massive in this series. I think if you're gonna get a guy that can impact the game in a way that could really just extend possessions for the Knicks. I mean, the Spurs overall this season were a really good rebounding team, but it's a different game in the playoffs when you're asking Wemby to be the focal point on offense and defense. And there was a lot of times in that OKC series where you see guys like Jalen Williams and Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet kind of getting those like backdoor long rebounds because Wemby is just gassed from going up and down the court. Like Mitchell Robinson is a guy, the best. It's like between him and Steven Adams as the two best offensive rebounders in the entire league. Like 14 impactful minutes lined up against Wemby, where he's just dominating him with physicality. I think that he's a guy that's going to be extremely important this series. The thing is, he has the hand or pinky injury, whatever you want to call it. He's going to be playing tonight, got a surgery, so he should be good. He's not really a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. But you got to imagine that impacts his game in some way. I mean, where you need to, have your hands on the ball. Like it's going to be harder for him to actually rack up points and rebounds if he can't actually grab the ball. I don't think it's going to change his shot as much because he's just not a good shooter. Like when he goes to the free throw line, he's probably missing 1 out of 3 shots, or making 1 out of 3 shots. So that's not going to matter too much. But yeah, I mean, the impact that he has if he's healthy, I think is just massive. So I guess what do you see on Mitchell Robinson? It's not a cheap tag compared to some of the Spurs guys in that same range, but to me, he feels like another guy with a pretty wide range of outcomes.
Yeah, he's another one. We talked a little bit before the slate about how worth it is it to get different on showdown slates like this, because most times when you're getting different, you're playing negative EV lineups. But when you have game one situations like this, there is more of an unknown. And I think Mitchell Robinson is the epitome of that. Like, I don't know, man. Like, kept hearing he's going to be fine and play, and he's going to play. But at first you thought it was just a finger, like the pinky, I think. And now you're hearing it's the hand. That's no bueno, bro. Like, I don't love hearing that. He's not a guy they rely on for huge minutes. So, like, you don't need a monster score out of him, but also, is he live to leave the game a minute in and not return? Probably more so than other players. I don't know. Maybe not at all, but have to imagine like that's at least on the table. So I like him here because they're going to need him. Like they need his physical presence inside. Like that's just the fact of the matter. But, it's a ownership type thing for me because I do think there's more risk than normal. In a 4K player. I don't know if he's going to get high enough own though, or that's a legit concern. Like, how do you see it?
In comparison to, Keldon, it'd be tough for me to click on Mitchell Robinson over Keldon Johnson just straight up because we know that Keldon's going to have his role for sure. And like you said, the range for Mitchell Robinson could be really low. Like he could definitely he could re-injure his hand, like it's broken. And if there's discomfort, they're probably not going to push him through it. And then even like Harper, Champagnie are not that much more expensive. So yeah, I don't know if he's hovering around the 10% range, then I'd probably want to be over the field there just because I really do think that he's a guy that is extremely impactful and matches up well. I wanted to look up his numbers versus the Spurs this season because I feel like he was pretty big in some of those games. Minus the NBA Cup. Oops. Let me pull this up real quick. I guess he only played one game in the regular season, not the NBA Cup. Yeah, so he played 18 minutes in that NBA Cup game, 4 points, 15 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 stocks. I think that's like the ceiling game from him. He was +9 in his 18 minutes. I doubt that he's playing 18 minutes tonight. I think that the high end is probably like 16, unless Cat gets into huge foul trouble. But even then, I feel like they'll probably have a minutes cap on Mitch Rob, and they'll probably like maybe get some Eric Huckworthy a little bit, like just to get some energy out of Wemby in that matchup. So I don't know. I think that he's definitely got to be a guy that's in your player pool. But like you said, is it worth taking the risk? Like I think for single entry, you're probably not playing him. MME, I'll definitely have. I would say if I had to guess right now, like 15%, maybe a little bit more, depending on where the ownership lands. But yeah, I would say like 15% is probably where I'd be at now.
Yeah, like around the field. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not a guy that I want to take a stand on, but I do think that he's extremely important this series for them. Like maybe later on in some of these home games where you got the crowd behind you, like I could see him just getting like 4 to 5 offensive rebounds in one possession. All right, let's jump over to the Knicks side unless there's anything else you wanted to touch on. I don't really think that we need to go through like the Alvarados and Huckworthys. Like maybe Wardo has a take on Jordan Clarkson. I do think that he's going to play some. Not sure if it's going to be enough. So I probably won't have much there. Like I doubt that he's going to be 13%.
I don't know. I'm reading like some of the chat. I don't know Newens. Man, I don't know if Mitch Rob is capped minutes wise. Like, I think he plays his normal run because I think it's either the type of thing where like he hurts his hand and he can't play, or he's playing his normal run. I don't think it's the type of thing where like they're limiting his minutes because it's a hand. You know what I mean? Do you agree there?
Yeah, I do. And like that, his normal run would probably, in the median side, end up at like 14, 15 minutes.
Right. That's the other thing. Like he doesn't play big minutes anyways. So like he's just a guy that they want for his like instant impact and the run he's out there.
Yeah. I think that the Knicks would be smart to match up a lot of Mitch Robinson's minutes with Wemby personally. Just kind of because Cat is not the same type of physical presence that Mitch Robinson is, like one of the biggest guys in the league. I really think that he could just kind of throw Wemby around, or at least like try to rough him up a little bit, kind of be like the goon in a sense, and just really kind of give him some hard fouls or like some really tough minutes. That's how I'd probably do it. Like get an early sub for Cat, give Mitch Rob like 3 to 4 minutes against him right away. I'm not really considering Huckworthy, Jordan. Personally, I was just kind of throwing out some ideas in terms of like the rotation, like who could see minutes if things go awry for Mitchell Robinson. Warda thinks potential double big lineup. Could see that. I mean, it's nice when you got a guy like Cat that can stretch the floor. I'd be interested to see how the Spurs combat that. But let's jump over to the Spurs side of things. Obviously, I think it all starts with Wemby. Like, let's just start there because he's kind of cemented himself as, I would say, the best player in the world now. That was just a great performance from him in the Western Conference Finals. Western Conference Finals MVP. Yeah, I mean, really just willed his team to win. I think it was awesome that they got the win on the road, but this is going to be, I mean, I don't know if I'd say this is a tougher task because OKC is probably as good as it gets defensively, but you're probably seeing, like I said with OG Anunoby, like the most versatile defender in the league. In my eyes, I think pound for pound, he's probably the best defender in the league, even though I don't think he even made first team all defense, which is crazy. But he's going to have to see a little bit of OG. I think they'll start with Cat on him because they did run more of like the prototypical big against Wemby in the season series. I think long term, it's probably going to be like when the season's over or the series is over and we see who lined up against Wemby the most, I'd imagine it's OG. But I do think that tonight they'll start with Cat and then some Mitchell Robinson on him. Cat's been playing much better defensively. I give him his credit. Still not the lockdown defender that I think that they would need against Wemby, but I'd be interested to see how they deploy Cat against him. If you remember in the OKC series, like they were picking up Wemby basically right as he crossed half court, and OKC, they get away with a lot of contact, but they were basically like boxing him out from getting even close to the paint as soon as he crossed half court. If the Knicks do that same game plan, I mean, I'm already seeing it in my head, like Cat just getting a little bit too physical, Wemby like throwing his head back, and we're seeing like 2 quick fouls from Cat early on. But matchup wise, how do you see this going for Wemby? I guess, I mean, I don't really know. I'm kind of going back and forth on my pick for the series, but I think if the Spurs win, it's because Wemby is going for like averaging like 30 and 15 a game. I just think that he's going to be able to score a lot in the series.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the guys we talk about on the Knicks, they can't really stop Wemby. Like, it's going to have to be a really team effort. They're going to have to tire him out. I think tonight they could be successful in that just because, again, you talk about the matchups and how it's not necessarily a tougher spot for the Spurs because OKC is so good defensively, and I agree with that. But mentally, it's a whole nother level, man. Like, you beat OKC, game a couple days later against a veteran team that's rested. Like, sure, the Knicks are talking about this might be the only chance they're ever here. You know what I'm saying? The Spurs are all young and green, which sometimes can play out to your benefit. And I do think they're more talented, which is why I think the series is going to be phenomenal. But I could see the Knicks just coming out with a really, really strong effort tonight, tiring out Wemby. And I'm with you. Like, I think if the Spurs win this series, they're going to need top-notch Wemby. And he's so good. He could struggle in the first half and then dominate the second half just because that's how good he is. Like, he always has stretches where he's just – you see stuff you've never seen before. So, I don't know exactly how the Knicks are going to play it. Like, Wemby, ultimately, in spots like this, he's – almost impossible not to play. It's just a matter of like whether you want to captain him or not. I'm leaning towards no. We'll get to that. But certainly I think this game is close enough. I think that he's the centerpiece to everything where his imprint's going to be pretty big in this contest.
Yeah, I do see. Yeah, that's a good point. I saw that from Deacon. I think he talked about that basically like yesterday or the day before. Definitely highly emotional win, but I think that if Pop is still there and talking to these guys, he'll get them right. I think they'll be good.
Yeah, I mean they'll be good. It's just tough though. Like I mean, they're young. Like I don't know. Like I really feel like this spot and the timing plays into the Knicks' favor, and how good the West is really helps the Knicks because San Antonio is way more beat up. To the flip side of that though. Maybe the West is just that much better than the East and the Spurs are going to roll. That's also in the cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Are you expecting more of like a defensive battle or offensive? Because I think it's going to be a high-scoring series.
So I think it's going to be a high-scoring series except tonight where I think it's like grimy because I think the Spurs are a little bit flat, tired, and I think the Knicks are going to come out with a really good defensive energy just because of what happened in game one last series. I think that if the Spurs are making shots early, the Knicks will match that. But I think it's grimy personally tonight.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Michael, we'll get to that after we break down the Spurs. We'll talk about our player pools. All right, let's jump down to the next grouping. Basically, the rest of the starters and Dylan Harper. We can toss those guys in. Castle, man, he's been great defensively this entire playoffs. Been, pretty. He's seen some okay, not great defenders in basically every round of the series, averaging 19.2, 4.9, 6.7 assists per game in the playoffs, 37 DK points. Definitely a guy that could kind of in that Josh Hart type of mold where he could fill up the stat sheet in a lot of different ways and be the guy that you needed up top. But I do think that this is a tougher spot than normal for Stephon Castle unless he can get hot from three. I think it's going to be Josh Hart on Stephon Castle, and I really think that Hart matches up pretty well against him. Hart is basically the same size. I actually don't know their height and weight, but to me, Josh Hart plays a lot bigger than he is, and I think can match Stephon Castle's physicality. You also got the kind of negative effect from Castle going to be in the guy that's in the actions a lot on defense because he'll either be on Karl-Anthony Towns or Jalen Brunson. They were putting Castle on Cat earlier in the season. If they do that again here, obviously there's foul risk, but Brunson also one of the better foul drawers in the league. So Castle, those type of guys, just like Josh Hart, where they have a wider range of outcomes, but more so for Castle, not because of the way that not because I think he's going to do poorly, but more so I think that the range for him could be foul trouble early, and maybe it could be one of those games where he's got 5 fouls and only plays 30, 32 minutes, something like that, which would be tough for me to get behind at his price tag. What are you seeing there between Castle and I guess like if you want to go into De'Aaron Fox and maybe Dylan Harper, we can group in all those guards together.
Yeah, so I think the last one you brought up about Castle is the main thing for me. It's how pricey he is now because of how good he's been, and I just don't know if I want to allocate the salary there, considering everything you mentioned. The issue with San Antonio, and this is a good problem for them, they just got a lot of guys that are similar after Wemby, that do similar things, that are fundamentally sound, that are all good defenders. Castle, Vassell, Champagnie. You know how much I love Harper. De'Aaron Fox to a lesser extent, but we know that he can, in any given game, carry the load offensively. I think he's a wild card, and his price is low enough. He'll get ownership where I think of all the others on San Antonio, like after Wemby, obviously, because of his price, and we know the ball will be in his hands, is Fox. We saw Castle really have a massive Western Conference Finals. And the truth of the matter is with all these San Antonio guys, basically outside of Wemby, like there are going to be games where it's Wemby, Castle, and Vassell. Then there's going to be games where it's Wemby, Fox, and Champagnie. You know what I mean? Like Wemby's the constant, but the next game it might be Wemby, Harper, and Fox. You know what I'm saying? Like the other guys are pretty interchangeable. That's why it's all about Wemby. Fox is my favorite at 7,600, I think, even though he probably has the lowest floor. And then I know we got asked about Harper earlier. Interested to hear your take on him. I think someone asked me if I think he's going to play 30 minutes tonight. I don't, and I don't project him for that. But I think there are scenarios where he plays close to that, and he's the guy that you want from San Antonio. I mean, we've seen it already in the playoffs. So definitely interested in Harper here. My biggest issue with like nailing down the San Antonio pieces is they're all pretty interchangeable. That's why this slate is pretty conducive to playing 150. So I get it for sure.
Yeah, you made some good points on De'Aaron Fox. I do think that he's kind of the wild card, like you said. When I was just kind of like researching and doing some write-ups for this game, he was the guy that stood out to me because kind of, if you were here with us in the regular season, we talked a lot about these games. Like the Knicks were a team that were really, really attackable in pick and roll situations because of the way that both Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson play drop coverage. Like Fox is kind of the perfect, like if Jalen Brunson was going against his own team, I would play him 100 times out of 100 just because of the way that he's able to beat those drop coverages in pick and roll. Fox is similar, definitely not as good, but also one of those guys that has, not a ton of playoff experience, but just NBA experience where if the game is close down the fourth quarter and you need a bucket, you're probably looking to him. Like the ball is going to be in his hands or in Wemby's hands.
I do not think the moment is too big for him. Totally with you.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in OKC. He's able to get to his spots in that kind of like floater range, and then if he's got enough room, he's going to make it.
They don't need him a lot of times, and they haven't needed him. But I think this is a spot where they're going to need him because I think this is a close game. Like, that's the luxury of how good San Antonio's been. They got a lot of good dudes. On any given night, it can be Harper, Vassell, Castle. I think Fox is in a good spot here, and I don't know if he gets enough ownership for how low his price tag has fallen.
Yeah. I would say the one thing I have against playing Fox is like good price tag for sure, but if he's not scoring, like I really think that you need like 25 from him because he's been kind of like relegated to adding no peripheral stats. Like he's not going to be chasing boards. He's really not chasing assists. Like it's all kind of going through Wemby and Castle at the moment in terms of those stats in particular. So it makes it really tough for him to separate a lot. I think he's a much better flex play than he is a captain play. Like borderline not in my player pool as a captain personally, but definitely think he makes a lot of sense. Like he's just in that range where it's easy to click on him and like OG or him and Mikal or something like that. But to answer your question on Dylan Harper, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be playing 30 minutes. That's definitely within his wheelhouse. I think the way that he gets there is with foul trouble from Castle, or if they're more comfortable going with that 3-guard lineup, which they've shown to do so in the playoffs. But either way, I really like the spot for Dylan Harper. I just think that he's big enough on defense that he can hang with anybody on the Knicks, and I also think that he's got enough of a offensive game where they're really going to need him at times. So I think that Harper really, really good. He might be even match up with some pretty weak defenders in the second unit on the Knicks. Like if they're putting guys like Shamit or McBride's fine, or like Clarkson, something like that. Jose Alvarado, like he could really, really cook. He's probably around like a 1 fantasy point producer in the playoffs right now, but it could be a situation where he goes off for like 8 points in a really, really short spurt. And then at 5,400, not a ton you need to do to be optimal. So I'm definitely into him. He definitely makes my player pool as a captain as well. And then Vassell and Champagnie, I think, are two guys that we gotta be considering here. And I think both should be in consideration for a captain as well. We saw Champagnie be the optimal captain the night that I actually took down that tournament. I only had 2 of him, but I really did like the matchup for him against OKC, just with his ability to be impactful on the boards, as well as being a guy that can stretch the court and just have a quick trigger on the catch and shoot stuff. It's kind of similar here in the sense that the Knicks, I believe, are the second biggest corner 3-point funnel in the NBA behind OKC. So Vassell and Champagnie are 2 of the guys that are the best options for the Spurs in that sense. I'm really liking Champagnie here, though. I just think that he's been too good on both ends of the court to be cut down by like a guy like Keldon Johnson. And the same could be said for Vassell. Like the only way that these guys are really getting cut down, I would say, is if they expand the rotation a ton. But if I'm the Spurs, I think you just run with what's been working and keep it tight, because you gotta get a win at home. So I think you gotta lean into these guys a lot. I'm really liking both of Vassell and Champagnie, but I do have a slight lean to Champagnie over Vassell. Any takes there on those guys?
No, I like both those guys too, because the other thing is, like, this is a slate where you want Wemby and Brunson. So, finding one of those guys, Vassell, Champagnie, 6K-ish range to captain at low ownership makes a lot of sense in my eyes. I think Harper's in that mold too, because we've seen him get hot offensively. And for how I see this game playing out, potentially like the Knicks taking advantage of the Spurs maybe having tired legs and getting up, and Harper's that spark plug off the bench. So I definitely could see that. I like all 3 of those guys lower priced as like alternative captains to the obvious guys up top.
Yeah, for sure. It's just kind of running some just like raw builds on SaberSim, and a lot of times when you're getting like the Wemby, Brunson, Cat lineups as captain, you need to dip into the Carter Bryant, Harrison Barnes, Alvarado range, which I would prefer not to do. Like if you definitely should be playing a good amount of Wemby at captain, you probably should play a lot of a good amount of Brunson and Towns, but the way that you can get away from those really poor builds and just guarantee that you're getting 6 roster spots that are going to be playing and are going to be racking fantasy points is to go cheaper. But before I guess just not to get too ahead of ourselves and go into the captain stuff, but I do think that we have to take a look at Keldon Johnson and Carter Bryant when we're going cheap. Keldon, I think we know, is going to have the role. Like, I'm not expecting a huge jump in minutes. I think around 15 to 20 is where he'd be more often than not. I don't know if he's really going to be outplaying Champagnie or like doing enough on defense where they prioritize him over Champagnie. I think he's going to be playing. I think he's fine. But I do think Carter Bryant is a sleeper pick early on. Like he's the guy that I'd be comfortable going to if I'm playing Wemby at captain and I need a cheap guy more than Alvarado or Harrison Barnes or Jordan Clarkson, anything like that. Looking at some of the game ones over the last couple series that these Spurs have played, Carter Bryant played 16 minutes and 14 minutes in each of the last 2 game ones. So if you're getting an uptick in minutes, it's likely coming tonight. He's the only guy I'm really setting a rule on because his minutes have to come from somebody. I think it's coming from a wing. I doubt it's coming from Fox, Castle, or Harper. So I'd probably be setting a max 2 of Bryant, Vassell, and Champagnie. I think it's coming from one of those 2 guys. But yeah, I really would prefer not to go that cheap if I didn't have to. We can touch on I guess we didn't touch on Cornet. This is a good thing that Sean brought up before we pass it on. I don't really think it's much of a Cornet series. It's just tough for him to really see a lot of minutes when they probably want to get Wemby 38 minutes a night. So you're getting 10 from Cornet at most, and then you really need him to rack up a lot of points. I do prefer Carter Bryant over Cornet, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, I prefer Bryant over Cornet. Stinks. I can't do Cornet. If I were playing 150, I wouldn't X him out of the pool, but I would never be building around him or like prioritizing him in single entry type or hand builds. It's Carter Bryant. Give me the athlete. I think that's what they're going to need more in this series, is athletes, because the Knicks are athletic. It's not a Cornet spot for me at all.
Yeah, I think Bryant is going to mix. Like when I was thinking about the series, he was the guy I could have seen getting more minutes just to mix in some defense on Brunson, because he's long enough and like agile enough to stay, at least give him some issues. If like Castle's getting cooked or if he's just getting into foul trouble early, I think that Carter Bryant will be a guy that they go to a little bit. I think you're just hearing what you want to hear, because I didn't say they were bad defenders. I didn't say they're weak defenders. I said they were weaker defenders. All right, but let's jump into the player pool for our captains here. Obviously, you're a guy that plays less lineups, not really doing a lot of 150. But if you were building, let's say 3 to 5 lineups, where would your captain player pool start and end?
I lost you. Can you hear me?
Oh, you got me? Uh-oh. Can you guys, if you guys are here, can you confirm you can hear me or Matt?
I got you now.
Okay. I just said no, it's all good. So as a guy that plays less lineups than most, if you were playing 3 to 5 lineups tonight, where would your captain player pool start and end for both teams?
This is kind of piggybacking into like what Jose Morales is asking, because I am interested in a Harper captain tonight. So obviously, like, it starts with Brunson and Wemby. If you can fit one of those two guys, I prefer Brunson. He's a little bit cheaper. I like the Knicks here. Your points about just how tough it is for guards of Brunson's ilk to get there because of Wemby's prowess is well taken. So those are the first two guys. But after that, I'm interested in, from the Knicks side, OG, because I think his ceiling is super, super high. I think Towns is interesting in tournaments because I think he's low owned and his ceiling is high. And then it's the 3 Spurs: Vassell, Champagnie, Harper. Harper is the cheapest, I think the most volatile, but like, I think he's got the highest ceiling, not even just points per dollar, like the actual raw highest ceiling. So I like Harper here in tournaments. You're going for first. He's won a couple slates already the past couple rounds. So that's how I see it. Tell me how you differ.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same. Like, there's 6 guys in the Spurs I think you consider. Everybody in the starting lineup and then down to Dylan Harper will make my player pool. I would imagine right now I'd have probably the most Wemby out of anybody on the slate. I would want to be overweight to Champagnie, Harper, and Vassell for sure. I agree with you in the Harper play. I think that he's very live to be optimal tonight. Definitely think he's got the most ceiling out of these 3, like pure ceiling. But I would say Champagnie is probably the guy that's more likely to get there more often than not. But I like all 3 of those guys. I think that they are going to be largely impactful in this series, and then probably would end up around the field, if not under, on Fox, and then probably under on Castle as well. I'm not in love with the matchup for Castle and just not really in love with the upside for Fox personally. Go ahead.
No, I'm with you on Fox. Like, based on what you said, like, you need so many, like, the fact that you need so much real scoring from him kind of makes me not like him in captain, just because I think it'd just be such an outlier performance for him to fill up the box score, which is kind of what you need when you're a captain.
Yeah, totally agree there. They're just not in love with the matchup for Stephon Castle. I think that there's probably a little bit more downside than upside for him at this price tag, because at 8,400, what would you want there? Like, imagine, let's just say that like Wemby, 2 of Wemby, Cat, and Brunson go for their projected score, or like standard deviation, like 3 to 4 points on each side. Then what would you want from Stephon Castle in order to need him at captain? Like 45 to 50?
Yeah, at least probably. The thing is, like, with how pricing is on the slate, if you're playing Wemby and Brunson, like especially if you're captaining one of them, like you're definitely only getting to one of Castle or Towns, if one of them, like maybe not even one of them. So like you're gonna have to concede a lot to play Castle here because of how high priorities like Wemby and Brunson are. I get Castle's price because of how good he's been, but we see stuff change, things change series to series. I just don't think I personally, and we see this similarly, it seems, don't want to pay full freight for Castle here at the start of the series when I don't love the spot for him either, based on everything that you laid out. So, yeah, I think we see that really, really similarly.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these lineups. Like for Castle captain, you'd probably, I think you would still want Wemby, but you're probably fading both of Towns and Brunson, which I think is interesting. Like if you go with OG and Bridges and then a value Spur, and then maybe like you're landing on Keldon or something like that as your last player, I think that makes sense. But yeah, definitely not a guy that I am willing to take a big stand on tonight, just for the reasons like we just talked about.
He's just pricey. He's been phenomenal though. So like I get why some people will go there and would want to plant their flag there. He's awesome, man. Like that team is fun to watch.
Absolutely.
I like a bunch of their guys, so this should be a good one, man. No doubt about it.
Yep. Finishing things off for the Knicks, for me, probably going to be overweight to Brunson, just because I think that he can be undeniably the best player in the game and be the guy that you need to captain. Like you said, is a little bit more comfortable to click on him over Wemby at these price tags. Wemby definitely probably got the higher ceiling overall, but I think that Brunson definitely live to be optimal. And I would say the same for Cat too. Just easy for him to rack up the fantasy points. I'd probably end up around the field on Hart and OG. Probably wouldn't want to take a huge stand there, and then probably under on Mikal Bridges, not playing any non-starter and captain for the Knicks tonight. All right, let's go to. I guess we don't really do this often, but you can call it whatever you want. I'll just say like conviction or bet on plays, the guys that we're going to be heavily featured in our lineups if we were playing. I'm definitely playing tonight, so I have a pretty good take. But if you want to kick things off, I think I already know where you're going to go. But I guess if you were playing like 3 lineups, a guy that you'd potentially be locking.
Man, I'm gonna say Harper, bro. He's just so cheap. Like for a guy that I think has such massive upside, give me Harper. I'm super high on him anyways. Like he fits basically any type of build. And with how I see this game playing out, it's Harper for me. Like he's just, I get why he's priced where he is. He's volatile, but he's so cheap for like how good he is if he gets run. Like he can smash this tag, which most players around this price point, I just don't think have the upside that he does. So he's my guy.
I love it. Had a feeling you were going to go there. Definitely a guy that was kind of top of the list for me as a guy that's going to be heavily featured in my portfolio tonight. I just want to look up one thing before giving mine out. Yeah, okay. That just kind of solidified it for me. Yeah, I'm gonna go OG Anunoby as the guy that I'm gonna be heavily invested tonight. Think that his ownership at captain, where do we have him at? Yeah, 8%. I'd probably imagine. I think I said I was gonna be around the field. I'll probably end up in like the 12 to 15% range. I probably want to get double the field there and then let everything else fall. But I'm just really, I think the OGs is going to be huge in the series. The time off for him has been massive. I think that the hamstring sounds like it's all but healed up. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing from OG, the historic playoff riser. If I had to choose another one, I would go with Champagnie. I'm just liking those guys, the shooters at home for the Spurs in that cheaper range, like Champagnie, Vassell, Harper. I think all those guys are very, very strong tonight. All right. You want to give your series prediction so people can clip this and then make fun of us, or we can use it as ammo later down the line if we get it right?
Yeah, I like the Knicks here, man. I just like the Knicks in this spot. I think the age and the Western Conference comes to bear for the Spurs and kind of bites them in the butt here. Man, the Knicks are playing such good ball. I never thought that I would think an Eastern Conference team would win the finals, but I do now. Give me the Knicks. I think it's going to be a long, hard fought series, but I think the Knicks steal home court tonight, and I think this series goes 6. Because if it's 7, then they got to win in San Antonio again. But I wouldn't put it past them either. So give me the Knicks in 6.
Yeah, that's what I had too. I had Knicks in 6. I think it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I do think if it goes 7, then I would favor the Spurs. But all in all, I'm going to say Knicks in 6. I just think that the time off is going to help them experience just Jalen Brunson factor. I think it's going to play huge. So it's kind of an emotional hedge for me because, well, I guess not really because I'm not putting any money on the Knicks, but yeah, I mean, if the Spurs win, I'll be happy. I'm not going to be upset if the Knicks win because I chose them, but yeah, I do think the Knicks are gonna win this one. So I'm sure Wardo and other Knicks fans in our Discord are probably pretty happy about that. Yeah, that did it. It was good to get in here and talk some hoops with you. There's no guarantee that we will do another show for the playoffs. So if this is the last one, then obviously, echo everything we said at the last NBA show. And we appreciate you guys tuning in, but we'll see. We'll try to squeeze in one next week if schedules line up. If we go 6 or 7, then I would maybe we'll see when game 6 or 7 is, but we'll probably have to fire up one more stream for one or the 2 of those games. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Matt?
No, man, just happy to get back on here with you. It's been too long. Hopefully we get a long series and we can get on here sometime next week and talk some more hoops because it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I know it was kind of a last minute thing, but it's nice to talk hoops with my guy, and appreciate all you guys for all the support as always. We'll catch you guys in the Discord. Got about 2 hours and 40 minutes until tip off, so we'll get the cores up, and our guy Little Neck does have the slate plan up already, so go check that out if you are a member, and we'll catch you guys later. Good luck tonight.